Okay. Few more queries for this morning. Where's mine? There it is. Get rid of this. Okay. Now, remember when we run a query and when we look at the results, there's that table there. And sometimes we would like to use that information in other queries. So we're going to write queries that use other queries. So the first query the first question I want to answer this morning here is, I'd like to see a list of households whose home value is above average. Okay. So I'm going to need to figure out what the average home value is, and then we're going to have to use that piece of information in another query, right? We have the home values, but we don't have the average, so we can go ahead and create that query to calculate that for us. That information is in the household table. And we're obviously going to want something that spans records, so that means we're going to want to do a totals query. And the thing that we're interested in finding is the home value, and the thing we'd like is the average. Okay. All right. Now, when you do one of these totals queries, typically you put a grouping field in here too. But if you don't have a grouping field, then it says the group is the entire table. Just so it's going to, what this will do when I run this, it's going to produce that number. And so the average home value in this sample database is 1.2 million or thereabouts. Okay. So now we know that number. Now, I'm going to just save this query, and I'll just call it query 1. That's good enough for this. Okay. So we would do, again, we want households above that number. Whoops. Households. There we go. And we want to know which households meet that criteria, so we pick that one once, and then we pick home value a second time. Right down here, like that. Okay. Now we could do this, and it would be wrong. We could say greater than 1,200,000, right? 1.2 million, or whatever the real number was there. Okay. And that would work, but that's not good practice, because databases change all the time. People are going to be adding stuff, people are going to be taking stuff out. That number could fluctuate on a week-by-week basis or month-by-month basis. So every time you wanted to do this on a query, you'd have to run the other query and find that number and then copy it over to here, all that sort of stuff. There's a better way to do that. So instead of doing it this way, which is error-prone and labor-intensive and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to go to Show Table, and I can say queries instead of tables. I can add an additional query up here in the table selection process. And I've only got the one at this point, so we'll just put query 1 there. Okay? All right. Now, what will happen when we tell it to execute this query is it'll grab the household table, and it sees that query 1 is that query, so it'll run that and produce a table. So it'll have the tables, and then it'll put the tables together, and it'll go on and do everything else. So in effect, this, even though we've stored it as a query, it will reproduce the table on the fly for us, which is nice, because it'll run the query at the very instant, so it'll have the latest, greatest, most accurate home value average that we can possibly have. It's up to date. Now, in this one, I don't have a join, so it's going to take the first record and match it with all the records in the second table, and then take the second record from households and match it with all the records in query 1, and so on and so forth. But there's only one record in query 1, so in effect what we've done is we've added that field, that column, to the end of the household table. We've created an extra column. Does that make sense? Because it matches them up one by one. It's going to just match that up. So it's going to put that average home value on the end of each record in the household table. Okay. So then, to find out which ones are above average, I can compare the home value to the mean value. Or actually, I won't compare it. I will take the home value and subtract from it the mean value. And if that number is above 0, then they're above average. And if it's below 0, then they're below average. So That means we have to do an expression builder. And the first piece of information I need is the home value. And minus the second one, which is in that query. So now I've got to come down here to queries. I find the query that I'm interested in. And there's the field I want, like that. Okay. So we'll take the home value, subtract the average. Again, if it's a positive number, that means they're above average. If it's a negative number, it means they're below average. And I can say OK here. And down here, since I wanted just the households above average, I would just say greater than 0. All right. And then we can run this. And there's my list of households that are above average. Okay? And so we can do this sort of stuff. It's like all those queries that we've done before, we can save those for whatever purposes, and then we can use them in additional queries. Because like I keep saying, well, I need a list of households that meet this sort of criteria, or I need this or that. If we save those queries, then we can use them in subsequent queries for whatever purpose we want. So that's a simple one there. Let's do a second one here. Another reason why you'd want to do something like this is, say you've got some sort of complex set of criteria rules for adults, and you're going to use them over and over again. So in here, you could set this up by going adults, and I need the household ID number, and the adult ID number, and then date of birth, and gender, and education, and party. Okay. So I'm looking for people who are less than 50 years old, so that would mean greater than, or let's say less than 40. So 40 from today would be 73, right? 73, right? Greater than 04/26/1973, and I forgot the hashtag. And I'm looking for females, and I'm looking for them that have more than 12 years of education, and they have to be they have to be in the set of Democrat or Green Party, like that. Okay. So, and then I just uncheck these. So that produces a list of adults who match that criteria. Okay. And then I'll just save this, and I'll just save it as query 2. Okay. Then whenever I want to call up a list of highly educated females who are in either Democratic or Green Party, I can use that in my other queries. So I could go households, query 2, and Access will look at what's in each one of those tables if there's no explicit relationship, and it says, look, you've got this field HHID in both of them, and it has the same structure, same data type, same field size. That's probably a good clue that you want to relate those tables on that field. So it went ahead and did that for you. If that's not right, or something doesn't show up here, then you do. Let me see if I can get rid of this. There. Okay. If you got something like this where you've got multiple records in each one of those tables, and you don't want it to join all records with all records because it's going to create this huge mass of stuff, you link the tables together just like you did table relationships. So you just do this, and there you go. This is a temporary thing. It only exists inside of this query. And then I can pick, state and whatever else I wanted to know here, city, zip code, HHID, and so on. Okay. Now, because that table, query 2, has all that complex information about who we should select, when I'm putting these two tables together, because it's still an inner join here. It's only records from both of those tables. So that, in effect, would say we're only going to pick households where the female is of a certain age, has a certain number of years of education, is either in the Democrats or the Democratic or Green parties. So we don't have to bother doing all that selection stuff again. With me? Because remember, for an answer to show up in our output table, there has to be a record on both sides of the join. And so we can run this, and there's my list of people that match that criteria. Okay. So those are the two common reasons why you'd use a query and other queries, but you can do all sorts of things with it. All right? Okay. Now then, last query for today. Okay. I want to know the number of kids per household. Number of kids per household. So I'm obviously going to need households, and I'm going to need kids, close. I've got the join, that's great. I can do household ID number here, and I'll do child ID number, and we'll do the totals, because again, I'm trying to group. I want information about the household, not about the individual kids, and so we'll just say count here. And we'll run this, and we'll see right away that, oops, this is the wrong query. I know there's 5,100 households in my database, 5,100 something. So I just looked at my record count down there, and it's off by quite a bit. And then I also, if I didn't notice that, I noticed right up here that somehow household 1,002 disappeared, and 4 disappeared, and so on. Why is that? What's going on here? What did I? Yes.
Households with no children don't have a record in kids' case.
Right. Because remember, when we do this, the default link between the two is that something has to be on both sides of this. Right. Something has to come out of both tables. Well, households that don't have kids, there's no information on that other table, the right-hand table up here. So it just ignores them. Okay. Now, if you want that answer, I want a list. I want to know how many kids are in each household. 0 is a legitimate answer, right? So to fix that, you have to change the kind of join. So I'll just carefully click on the link between the two. Right-click, join properties. How do you want to join these two? The default is what's called the inner join, which means that I want the output record has to have information coming from both sides of the join. But we want to switch this to option 2 here, which says all the records on the left-hand side should be in the output table, and whatever information you can find from the other table, the right-hand side one, add that into the answer table. So this will force it to keep all the household records, even if it doesn't find it in a matching child record. So we can just do that, and we can run that. And now I've got 5,120 households, which is exactly what I had in the adults. And notice now 1,002 comes out with a 0. Okay. Because, sometimes you need to know that sort of stuff. All right, so questions here? Okay, so in the time that's left, you can go on to, if you haven't finished 2, you can finish that, and if you have, go on to 3 and work on those questions.